Donald, nice to see you.
Thank you.
Okay, you've been busy on Twitter lately. Let me read you one of your recent Twitters. It's about President Obama. You said, the habitual vacationer calling America lazy this past weekend while in Hawaii. He was at a big APEC summit in Hawaii. You take issue with it?
Well, I do indeed, when he's using a 747 Boeing to go around, which is called Air Force One, to go around and campaign and raise funds. And I can't imagine that the Republicans aren't being stronger about he shouldn't be able to do that. But he's flying around on Air Force One, which is a plane that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars an hour to fly.
But all presidents do this, both parties.
Maybe they do, but I've never seen anybody do it like this. I mean, I've been watching this for a long time, and I've never seen any president work like this. This is crazy. He calls it vacation. He calls it this. He's campaigning. He's really campaigning and vacationing. I'm not sure which is worse.
All right, the reference where he says, he said when he was speaking on November 12th, this is in part, but we've been a little bit lazy, I think, over the last couple of decades. We've kind of taken for granted, well, people want to come here, we aren't out there hungry, selling America and trying to attract new business into America.
Well, it's interesting that he calls people lazy. I mean, he's done one business deal in his life. That was his house. And there's a big question about his house. So it's very interesting that he's calling people lazy, because he's really referring to the business community, and they don't give us the tools. When they allow China to manipulate their currency, when they allow other people and other countries to do what they're doing against our country, you know, it would be nice if the government could give a little help. But for him to call, and I said it the other day on, actually, one of your shows, I said it the other day, for him to say that the business people of this country are lazy is disgusting.
What do we
especially coming from him.
What do we want more of? Do we want more of American businesses going overseas and developing products and sort of growing around the world, or do we want foreign companies to come here?
I think we want American companies to stay here and develop their products from here.
That wasn't a choice. That wasn't a choice.
No, but that's what's going on. I mean, that's the problem. People don't even give that as a choice. Even you. I mean, you're asking me a question. Do we want to go over there and develop? No, I think companies should stay here, make their product, and sell it to China like they do to us.
Well, we'd like that. That's ideal, but that's not happening.
Well,
at least
the reason it's not happening is because of a simple manipulation of currency, and we do nothing about it. But we should be making product here and sending it out. You know, China says, so you want to build a tractor? Good. We don't want your tractor. Go build a plant in China. We don't do this. We don't do this. We're not doing it properly in this country. China says, wait till you see what happens to Boeing. I have a lot of good friends at Boeing. And watch what's going to happen with China and Boeing. They're going to make their own aircraft. They're going to make everything. They're not going to be buying from Boeing very soon. They're going to be making their own aircraft that's going to be made in China, and they're going to be competing with Boeing like you never saw before.
Okay, new topic, 2012. Give me sort of a highlight of what you think is going on in the race. Who's up, who's down, who's doing well?
Well, it's amazing because every day it changes. Now, Newt, who's a friend of mine, is doing very well. Mitt Romney's doing very well. I mean, he's doing very well, but he just doesn't seem to get that extra little bounce that you would think he'd get.
Why doesn't he move up a little bit? He doesn't move down, but why doesn't he budge at all?
Well, you could say he's got a very solid base. I mean, he doesn't move down, and that's a big statement that you make. He doesn't move down. But you would think that he'd be bouncing like wild. He's done great in the debates. He's really done beautifully in every single debate.
But does he? I mean, the pundits say that, but if the numbers don't reflect it, I mean, he's a great debater. All the pundits say he does really well. But how come the numbers aren't moving up? The voters are not showing that they think he's doing a great job.
Well, they think he's probably not as conservative as they'd like to see, and yet that's a very smart game potentially, because if he gets the nomination, he's going to have a very good chance against Obama relative to other people that maybe are more conservative. So he's playing a very fine line game, and it may be brilliant. We'll let you know in about a year. Right?
One of the things that the Obama campaign is going to go after him for is things like flip-flopping, issues like abortion. When he debated Senator Ted Kennedy in the early 90s, he was pro-choice. He's changed his mind. He got a little heat recently about the collective bargaining law in the state of Ohio. They called him a flip-flopper for that. He's getting a little bit of that, which is going to be very painful should he get the nomination.
Well, sure, and they're going to get him a flip-flopping, and other people flip-flop, and frankly, people change their minds over a period of time, and Obama was against the debt ceiling. He voted against it when he was a senator and did lots of different things, and he's now advocating. So, you know, I guess they probably look at that as a weakness. I'm not sure it's a weakness or not. He changed his mind.
So it's a tie. They both have flip-flopped.
Well, Obama certainly flip-flops. He was against the war. He was going to get us right out of the war. It was going to end immediately. In the meantime, he got us more into the war. And by the way, as soon as we leave Iraq, as soon as that's over, that thing is going to be a mess, and Iran's going to take over. So I don't think he's done us any favor. But no, I mean, who flip-flopped more than Obama? Look at the war. Look at his vote on debt ceiling. Look at many of his other votes. He's flip-flopped more than anybody.
All right, you mentioned Speaker Gingrich, that he is at least currently surging. Every day is a little bit different for everybody. Why do you think he is doing better now?
Well, he's got some very good conservative views, but I think maybe more than anything else, he really is a very good debater. And you know I like him because he's a member of my great golf club in Washington, D.C. I love people that join my clubs.
Is he any good at golfing?
He's good, and his wife is good. I mean, they're very nice. They're really nice people. The people, they're liked very much at the club, that I can tell you.
All right, so why?
'Cause I don't know
on a serious
that well.
note, why is he doing well, besides the fact that he's a good debater?
Well, no, I think the good debater is really a big thing. It's not just, the debates have never been so important as they are now, for some reason, both good and bad. I mean, you've seen what happened to certain candidates that didn't do well in the debate, and it's really been not a pretty picture. Newt has done very well in the debates, and Mitt Romney has done very well in the debates.
But the debates are interesting, they're fascinating to watch, but the idea that you can ask someone a foreign policy question, or how do you correct the economy, and give the person 30 seconds or a minute, with this little snapshot, does it really tell us anything about the person?
And it could be that your worst debater would be your best president. It's possible. But I think people want to see how a certain candidate acts quickly, because, you know, it is a quick thing. It is something to do with this. Acts quickly, and how do they react under pressure? Because they're under a lot of pressure. And Mitt has done very well in the debates, and Newt has done very well in the debates. And a couple of people have done well, and a couple of people haven't done so well.
What is the effect, do you think? And I realize it's a little bit of voodoo, but some of the personal issues. For instance, Speaker Gingrich is confronting some of the issues from the 90s with his marriage. There's been an allegation against Mr. Herman Cain, about sexual harassment. All this sort of, is this significant in the race, or is this sort of going to be collateral come 2012?
No, it certainly doesn't help. I mean, it's not exactly a great boost, and I think Herman has worked very hard to get rid of that, and it seems like a lot of things are unfounded. Nobody knows, are they true or are they not true, but they don't have any evidence or any proof. And it certainly is not a positive for Herman, and it certainly is not a positive for Newt. And in fact, I just see now that he's doing well. You know, they were leaving him alone, but now that he's doing well, I'm starting to see all the vicious stories come out about Newt. And, you know, it's going to be a tough period of time, but it is not positive. It certainly is not positive.
Ron Paul, Congressman
Right.
Paul, out? Totally out?
He's an interesting guy. He's got some interesting views on things. Whether you agree or don't agree, he does have some interesting common sense. I view it as common sense, not libertarian views on things. But, you know, it's going to be very hard for him to win. There's no question about that. I mean, a couple of the folks that are debating, I don't think we have to get in too much into names, but it's almost like, why are they taking up the time? You look at their numbers. They've stayed at 1% for a long period of time, and you hear them answering the same question over and over and over at the debate, and you don't want to hear it from them. You really want to hear from the candidates that have a chance.
Maybe they think the others are going to implode. We get surprises
hey, look,
all the time.
Hey, it's happened before, but I think certain candidates are just not going to have much of a chance.
If I were running, I would actually be focusing on Iowa and spending a lot of time there, and let everyone else sort of be distracted by the national polls.
Well,
I guess
think that's true.
whoever has a really good ground game in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina,
Sure.
Florida.
And a couple of people are doing that. We'll have to see if it works, but a couple of people are doing that.
What would be your,
And they're focused also in New Hampshire.
right? What would be your advice for Governor Romney?
Well, it's interesting. Probably the best thing he could do is get my endorsement, because I do carry a big endorsement.
Is he going to get it?
I'm looking at a lot of different things.
But you always say that.
No, I am, and I'll be making an endorsement at some point.
But why are you waiting? You have a level of certainty. You're a very determined businessman. You've been very successful. I bet you know.
I'm looking. Do I know in my mind who it's going to be? I have an idea who it's going to be. I don't want to say yet.
Well, what's the criteria? How do you?
I'm just seeing what their attitudes are on certain things. As an example, foreign policy. We keep talking in this country about the economy. Now, very rarely do we mention all of the countries throughout this world, this great world of ours, that are ripping us to shreds because their leaders are sharper, smarter, tougher than our leaders.
All right, stop right there. I suspect that when they've all made this sort of pilgrimage to see you, I suspect you've spent more time with them asking them questions like that than we see on these sort of snapshot debates.
That's true.
So I would think that you'd be farther ahead of this decision than
Well, no, I
than
mean,
you're
I
letting
feel
on.
very strongly about it. I mean, we can say education, we can say all sorts of things. You know, it's interesting. They talk about what do we do about jobs? And people say, oh, we need education. I watch the debates. It's very sad. They talk about everything but what the primary reason is. We're losing our jobs to other countries because of stupid policies and actually very, very stupid politicians.
Is this new, or is this just the President Obama administration? Or is this something that's been an epidemic in prior administrations?
It's gotten worse. I mean, we honor China right now. I watched Mr. Huntsman the other day. It was almost like roll over and let China take over this country. I watched in the debate. I thought it was a terrible answer. I thought it was a terrible, not that he gave it improperly. I think it's a terrible answer to a big problem. I think that we have to focus from within. We have to start getting back to the core values of this country. The world is eating our lunch. They're taking our jobs. They're doing numbers on us, and our politicians aren't smart enough to even realize it. When we have the president of China coming to this country, Obama gives him a state dinner. What he's doing to this country is unbelievable.
All right.
I'm not talking about Obama. I'm talking about the president of China. But if you think about it, Obama also.
Okay. All right. Now, in terms of just China, and I know that China's has got a big target on its back for you as being very important in terms of the presidency. Which one of the candidates for the Republican nomination do you think would be the toughest on China, or the most aligned with what you think should be done about China?
Right. It's a very interesting question. They're starting to get tougher in China. I've been preaching this for 3 years, and, you know, it takes a long time. But they're starting to get tougher on China. I think the one that's toughest on China that I see right now is Mitt Romney.
Why? What has he said that's convinced you of that?
Well, he has a very similar thought process as I do, having to do with China. He's obviously seeing that China is ripping us big league. And it seems to me that he is the toughest on China.
All right, OPEC is the other thing that you've discussed.
Right,
OPEC's the other one that gets you really going.
OPEC is the single biggest abuser of this country, absolutely.
Which of the candidates has the toughest approach to OPEC?
I haven't seen anybody.
None of them?
Well, I haven't seen them using the word OPEC. I mean, I haven't seen them really discussing it too much. But I will say this, the candidate that wants to drill in this country without mentioning the word OPEC is okay with me also, because frankly, we have so much under our beautiful earth in terms of natural gas, in terms of oil, in terms of coal. They don't want to use coal. You know, we're shipping coal to China. China's using coal, but we can't use coal. They're making it impossible for our companies to use coal. And yet other countries are using our coal.
All right, you must have been following.
It's pretty ridiculous.
You must have been following the pipeline dispute from Canada,
and
that's been now put on hold. And it's sort of the president is sort of caught between the environmentalists and the unions.
Right. Well, it's obviously political. He doesn't want to do it till after the election. He's caught between the unions, which is very interesting, where they want it, and they're supposed to be on his side, and the environmentalists, because they don't want anything in many cases. And I'm an environmentalist. People don't realize. I've received so many environmental awards. I do a great job from the standpoint of the environment, but I'm an environmentalist that wants things to happen. You have environmentalists that want nothing to happen. And Obama is caught. So what does he do? Instead of doing what he should do, which is approve it, and get some fuel in this country and get some jobs in this country, he said, I'll wait till after the election. That's all he did. Purely political.
I actually have a problem with the fact that no decision is made.
I think it's terrible.
I mean, and it's not just...
And it's so obvious, too. It's not like, oh, gee, there's no decision. It's obvious. He's going to wait till after the election and then probably approve it.
Well, it's not even just this. It's the Congress with this with the debt ceiling last August and the super committee. If the super committee doesn't reach a decision by Thanksgiving that's approved by Congress, that there are these huge cuts that will go into effect that the Republicans are unhappy with and the Democrats are unhappy with because it'll offend their constituencies. But that doesn't go into effect until January after the election because they don't want to offend their constituencies.
The concept of a super committee is an outrage. If we had a proper leader in this country, he'd get everybody into a room and they'd make a deal. For you to have a super committee, which is highly political to start off with, is absolutely an outrage. Now, I'm hearing the committee is not coming to terms. They're not doing what they think. I don't know. It's hard to believe that they won't come up. For me, everyone says they won't come up with a deal. For me, it's hard to believe that they won't, because I think there's a lot of political pressure on them to come up with a deal. But the super committee is an outrage that we even have a super committee.
But you don't see my point is that if in the event they don't reach a decision, it's not like the trigger gets pulled
It's
for
terrible.
January. It doesn't get pulled till after the election, so
Right.
neither Democrats nor Republicans will feel the pain from their inability to work out a solution.
Well, the one that really wanted that, the trigger after the election, was Obama. And he totally outnegotiated the Republicans. And I'm a Republican. He totally outnegotiated the Republican. Because the one thing he wanted in this whole deal was for the decision to come due after the election, and he got it. Because he knows if we end up, I call it the great mess. We had the great mess 6 months ago. He knows that if he went through that again prior to the election, he could not win the election. So he got the one thing he wanted, which was only for his own preservation. And he's a politician, so who can blame him? But I can't believe the Republicans allowed that decision to come due after the election.
Yeah.
He couldn't have won the election. He could not have won the election if it came due before the election.
Down, thank you.
Thank you very much, Greta.